Welcome back. The Sports Buzz, Nick Roush. I'm TJ Walker. Again, we host Kentucky Roll Call Monday through Friday on Big X Sports Radio, 7 to 9. You can listen on 96.1 FM, 1450 AM. Wake up with some KRC. Oh, can I help you?
I'm just doing some math
I'm
for
just
us.
doing a little TV, and you're on your phone
Well,
texting
I'm
away.
trying to do some math. And here's the thing that I took away from the box score, Terry. Tyrese Maxey, he only made 2 shots, 2 of 10. That's not very good. Ashton Hagans, he only had 6 points apiece. But I still really like this team because they've got plenty of other guys to pick up the pieces when they need help. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. You got some big minutes from Johnny Jazang. Finally had one of those big corner threes go down.
He made a 3.
Oh, man.
Way to go, Johnny.
I love Johnny
The
Jazang.
mid-range jumpers are as pure as
Oh.
the morning dew, but finally knocks down a deep outside shot. That was big. Let's talk about this. We'll come back to the Texas Tech game. I want to talk more about Emmanuel Quickly, who maybe is Kentucky's best scorer. We don't talk about it enough. Maxey gets all the credit. And I don't blame Maxey for having a bad game. Calipari always says when a player comes home, he rarely sees them play well. There's a few exceptions to that.
Ashton Hagans being one of them.
But that was his first game back in Texas since obviously his high school days. And Maxey just really couldn't get a flow going. We'll talk more about that. But let's talk about maybe the biggest off-the-court news regarding Kentucky basketball in the past week. The departure of 5-star wing player Khalil Whitney, who started, I think, the first 8 games of the season, but was seeing his minutes decrease and decrease and decrease. And he finally says, I'm out. He leaves middle of the year. Nick, what was your reaction? Obviously, I think everybody was surprised, but what else do you make of that news?
Well, the first things first, just the timing of it's very bizarre. I think the way things were trending, people weren't really confident that he was going to try to go around for a second year. But Quade Green, he left in the middle of the year at the end of the fall semester so he could get a jump start on eligibility.
Correct.
This is 2 weeks into the spring semester. Maybe if it's before the drop add-on, it doesn't really count. But just the timing of it was bizarre. But on the other hand, I don't feel like it's really going to hurt Kentucky that much. It really is going to hurt, I think, from a body standpoint, because we saw at the beginning of the year when you had Nate Sestina injured, and then I think you had somebody sick, where you're down to just 7 bodies. It'd be good to have some extra bodies.
Sure.
But really, Khalil Whitney, his big problem was he's like he's a tweener and that doesn't know what his role is. And he could have been a great 4-piece that was rebounding and playing good defense, but he got beat back door all the time, especially with like a minute to go until halftime. And he wasn't rebounding. And instead, he was trying to take some like weird 12, 14 footers. His shot was off. So something was off whenever he was in the game. And John Calipari, he really tried to help him get in the flow, help him define a role. But that just never happened. And as Whitney wasn't working to get into a role, his minutes decreased. And I can't blame Calipari for taking him away because he wasn't giving you anything.
Yeah, it was almost like a slow motion train wreck for Khalil Whitney from the beginning of the season to when he eventually decided to quit on the team. He had an identity problem crisis from the get-go because he used to be able to be faster, stronger, more athletic than the people he went against in high school.
Drive by him and dunk on him.
And then if you missed that dunk or you missed the layup, just get the rebound. Pad your own stats, get it, because he was just so much more athletic than the people he was going up against. And he was playing basketball in New Jersey and New York City. It was good high school basketball, but you still just don't see the same level of competition that you do when you're playing at a place like Kentucky. And Calipari gave him every chance in the world. So what turned into an identity problem, because he wasn't a great shooter, he couldn't put it on the floor, he couldn't get to the rim, he just didn't really know what to do. It turned into a full-time epidemic as he started to get more in his own head, where Nick, he was having trouble dribbling, just basic dribbles with the ball, catching passes. It was clearly a mental thing for him. Well, and I'll say this.
And to amplify it, too, if you saw in the Herald Leader, Ben Roberts talked to one of his AAU coaches, and the guy was like, he just wasn't getting enough minutes. They weren't using him right. And I think that shows a sign, TJ, that there was maybe some other people in his ear that probably just made that problem worse.
I'm glad that you kind of segue me here, because Khalil Whitney, by all accounts, I've talked to him a few times, seems like a great kid. You never really know, but seems like a great kid.
He waited to sign so he could go home back to Chicago to show the elementary school kids, be a good example, like, hey,
he wrote
you can get out of here.
Wrote an essay in 6th grade talking about how he wanted to play for the Kentucky Wildcats when he was older, when he was a grown-up. And the issue is he's not a grown-up. And I will say this, I'll look you dead in the eye, camera, and this no way gets back to the people close to Khalil Whitney. Whoever is advising him, you failed him. And it's really disappointing that you have adults making these horrible decisions. Just from a standpoint alone, that even if Khalil Whitney doesn't get the minutes that he thought maybe he deserved, and certainly the people around him thought that he deserved, you're getting to a point where Khalil Whitney's going to be sitting on a couch watching Kentucky go through March Madness and all the joy and fun that comes with that. He's going to be missing out on the SEC tournament in Nashville, which you talk to some former players, they say is like one of the most crazy things in the world. You're playing back to back to back in basically a home court atmosphere, but you're hundreds of miles away from Lexington, Kentucky. And now he will be doing nothing.
No.
He can't go enroll at another school. He can't go commit to another college right now. And the family's saying they don't even know if they're going to commit, so you're going to go play overseas potentially, averaging 3 points at Kentucky.
Yeah.
You have failed this kid, and hopefully, and the good thing is, and Calipari said this after the game, it's not too late for Khalil to make it. I hope that they find him a college that he fits into that will allow him time to develop, and you won't have parents breathing down his neck and the coach's neck complaining about playing time. It was almost like the Keon Brooks AU coach was a precursor to this, because the people close to Khalil Whitney, I can tell you with 100% certainty, are giving him bad information. This was not Khalil's decision. This was people close to him's decision, and it's really unfortunate to see adults make those mistakes.
Especially, TJ, when there's so many people that would have been around him at UK that are great examples of, hey, things aren't always going to go your way.
That's the thing.
You have to get by adversity. Look at what happened to PJ Washington last year. Look what Nick Richards is doing right now after struggling for 2 years to finally figure out in his third year. And then the guys that he came in there with, Johnny Jazang, a guy who's a year younger, who struggled for like a month, who put in the work and now is being rewarded for it. And I think that was ultimately the problem, Terry, is that I don't know if he was willing to put in the work to be rewarded. Because Cal's the guy, he's going to reward you if you do things the right way.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame.
And,
it really is.
and Khalil Whitney, he had starts. He had a bunch of playing time. This wasn't like a Cal had anything against him. It's just Kentucky was a better team when they were playing other guys, and that's because those guys were further along at this time period. So many people commit to Kentucky thinking, well, I'm at Kentucky now. I am a one and done. No, you got to work for it. You got to continue to improve. And if you're not a one and done, big whoop. Look at Willie Cauley-Stein. He stays 3 years. He ends up being
He's a Dallas Maverick now,
he is
playing
a
with
Dallas
Luka
Maverick.
Doncic.
But he ends up being a lottery pick, number 6 pick in the draft. Nick Richards, he was nowhere on draft boards the last 2 years. Now it's not crazy to think that he could potentially be a first-round pick when it's all said and done. Being patient pays, and like Nick said, you've got the example of guys that have done it in the past. We'll come back one final segment, talk about the rest of college basketball and maybe a little football news as well here on the Sports Buzz.